welcome to the Way Forward, the premier program to discuss how this country can be taken to the next level. I am Chanaka De Silva, and today with us is Mr. Kavan Ratnayaka, the chairman, Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Welcome, Mr. Ratnayaka.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Ratnayaka, first I would like to ask you, the ports is much in the news, or rather in all the economic circles, the port is also a very important place for us. What would you say is the position of the ports now? What is happening now, in your own words?
So, the Sri Lanka Ports Authority is responsible for the Colombo port, but it is also responsible for Kankasanture, Trincomalee, Oluville, Hambantota, Galle, in addition to. So it's responsible for all the ports in Sri Lanka. And as far as the port sector goes, we have a very positive story to tell, especially at the port of Colombo. It's a profitable business. It's number 22 in terms of transshipment in the world, number 11 in terms of connectivity, and last year we were recognized as the fastest growing port. So it's a good story, it's a success story, and growth has been maintained. We are capable of more growth, but the current situation is we are fast approaching capacity. So there is, what is top of mind for us is the build out of capacity, and hence, as you mentioned, the focus on new developments in the port.
Now, as when you speak of running out of capacity, are you specific about the cargo handling or the other areas as well? How would you speak?
Our primary focus is the container traffic. We are currently at about 7 million TEUs. So the focus is on expanding that capacity to keep with the growing traffic that is going through the port. We are situated luckily in a very good position in the world.
Well mapped.
Yeah. So that positioning gives us incredible leverage. We are right next to India, which is growing very fast. We can serve the Africa market, the Middle East market, also the Southeast Asian markets. So we are very fortunate to be in this position, and the port has been leveraging it, but there's a lot of upside. There's a lot of potential to be leveraged into the future, not just as a port of Colombo, also as a country. Hambantota has a different value proposition.
Right.
Trincomalee has a different value proposition. So we have to bring all these ports into play, make them work with each other, and help to address the business opportunity that's out there.
What are the other lines of business that could be added? I mean, like from the tourism side, which I think is a little untapped where the sea is concerned for us.
Yes.
And the ports handling them.
Yeah.
How would you say that if there is things?
So there is a logical growth path. I mean, it's just not just shipping. You could also, if you want to be a maritime hub, as the government wants us to be,
Yes.
then the upward journey, the value addition will come in the form of a good logistics play. So before we get to tourism is important,
Right.
Especially as a country. And in a previous life, I also was involved in tourism from the government side. But before we get to that, we would like to talk about logistics, because that's where we can add value and really create what is known as a maritime hub. So our focus is transshipment, cargo handling, container handling, but also logistics, and creating an enabling environment in the logistics area. And this we don't want to do just as the government and as the authority. We will have a play with the private sector, because no single agency can serve the entire market. The private sector is going to be a key partner in this, and they need to come up. We need to facilitate, and we need to get into logistics in a much greater way.
Yes. Speaking of logistics, now places like Hambantota,
Yes.
that port, and even Trinco, all those things will come into play.
Yeah.
How is the infrastructure to support this? Are they in place, or what is the plan to I mean, improve it so that the capacity could be built?
Yeah.
How is the
So there are concepts called, multi-country consolidation and so forth. We are not the first into this area. Other countries are doing it successfully. So there are models to follow, and people who know how to do this around the world.
Right.
We have to attract those players into the country, and the Minister of Shipping, Mr. Sagar Ratnayaka, recently traveled to Germany to attract such players into the country, foreign direct investment in the logistics area.
Right.
Into the country. There are good German players like Schenkers and Kuhn and Nagel who can add a lot of value, and I think part of his trip there was to talk to such companies and attract them into the country.
From a logistics point of view and what is happening now, once these are in place, what would you, just as a ballpark figure, see as a growth factor in the business? Like,
the growth is going to be in value addition, and I think in profitability for the players in the marketplace, because the transshipment will continue to grow to projections, and it's a healthy story that we have to say. So I don't have a size around it, I don't have an exact amount, but I know the factor that will really come into play is increased profitability, because if you are just shipping traffic through, there's a certain level of profitability. If you're adding value, there's a multiplier effect.
yes,
So depending on which segment you're addressing and what you're doing, it will change. But there is a gamut of things that we could do for people.
from here. Is there, that opens another small question. Do we have any preferred areas that we would like to go into logistics? As you said, that, there is a choice of handling. Obviously, we would like to go for what we can handle, the higher value ones, where we could add more. Is there anything like that?
There are, and we are in discussion with
Alright.
certain private sector partners on, on their area of expertise, and it's a spectrum of things. As I said, it's not one
Not a
particular thing,
one.
but it's definitely an area we want to invest into, and we want to work together with partners on.
Right. Now, as an island, everything comes in and goes out in a ship.
Yeah.
Right? That is, I don't know whether it's an advantage or disadvantage, but then we were always an island. In the port itself, what are the facilities that we offer, these ships that come in and for berthing and unloading and all that, in comparison to other ports in the world? If we are, now you say we are the 11th in the world, it should be quite good.
In connectivity, yes. Yeah.
How would you compare, and what improvements can we bring on those areas?
Yeah. So when you're a maritime hub, and we can't truly say that we are completely there yet, we are there partially. There's a lot more to be done, and we're there in total. There are other aspects that you need to add on, and one critical thing is energy. We need to be very focused on how we address the energy sector, because there is a energy opportunity that comes along with the maritime opportunity.
Energy opportunity? If you
in terms of bunkering, in
Right.
refueling ships, in refining and
All right.
kind of distributing energy.
All that will also add to.
Is a key sector to look at in tandem with the maritime opportunity. And you mentioned, you were wondering whether it was a good thing to be island or not. It's a perfect thing to be island, because when you really look at, and especially an island position where...
The position is infallible, it's perfect.
Yes, where we are at. We can, as a port sector, add a significant percentage to the country's GDP, and we should be looking at the numbers that sometimes Singapore looks at
Yes.
into the future. We really should look at that level of growth, and it's an industry that we are well positioned for, because there's natural inclination, natural skill to serve this market.
Market.
Yeah.
That's a very positive thing to look for, because I mean Singapore refuels a lot of ships and makes a lot of money after they refine the fuel. Now, as the port itself, looking on the other side where you previously, tourism side.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of agents sell cruises.
Yeah.
There used to be, I think, for Gold Port, they used to have some yachts coming, cruise liners, all that. What would you see as a future for cruisers to visit this country and to take off from here, things like that, in this region at least?
It's incredible opportunity because we have some really scenic ports. I mean, Trincomalee, Galle, even Hambantota is an interesting port to dock at. So the government is very keen, and SLP is very keen to develop Galle as a yachting center and a cruise tourism destination. And we've started working on it, including a short-term win. There is night navigation, because the moment you put in night navigation,
right,
which we are working on for Trincomalee as well, you make it a 24-hour port.
Right.
Ships can be served 24 hours, and with sometimes the same kind of infrastructure, you can almost, increase. I won't say double, but you can certainly increase your business volumes. And already Trincomalee and Galle are profitable ports for us, so we are looking at increasing that. And tourism is a key segment we are looking at. So increased facilities at passenger berths, working with the local community to make sure that the people who are coming in have things to do and treated right. So these are all critical things. We get about 70 ships calling at Colombo.
Right.
Our facilities are very basic. So there's increased focus this year to add facilities, to add a passenger terminal soon, and improve how we serve the tourists that are coming in.
We will go in for a short break now. We'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back to the Way Forward. We will continue this discussion with Mr. Kavan Ratnayaka, the Chairman, Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Welcome back, Mr. Ratnayaka. All what was said was very, very fascinating, at least seeing the future, what actually can be done. What I would like to know now is immediately, what are the improvements that are being put in place quickly? Because what I mean is, when for a port the plans are long, every year is a long time for the people. And actually, I agree with you, having the sea around us, there's a lot of things we can do which we are not doing, which, I mean, good ports will help everyone. What is in place now at the moment, ongoing?
So the main thing on my mind and the mind of my board these days is the East Container Terminal, because earlier I mentioned that we were fast approaching capacity and that we need to bring additional capacity for our main business, which is the container business, online. So the East Container Terminal is something that we can operationalize very quickly, because 440 meters of it has already been built out, and it just needs to be completed out to 600 meters and the cranes brought in to operationalize it. So it's a quick win. It's been pending for about 4 years due to various reasons, divergent thought processes on what should be done. But in the port game, there's an old adage that even a bad decision is better than no decision. And hopefully what I have now is not a bad decision, but a good decision, which is to do this in partnership with Japan and India. And my minister signed, it was a government-to-government agreement, and my minister signed a memorandum of cooperation with the government of Japan and with the government of India. And the deal structure is a very simple one, and it's a very open and transparent one, because he discussed this during the budget discussion in Parliament, and it was open for everybody to debate, just that nobody latched on to it, because I suppose there was no interest. But once the MOC was signed, there were all these questions about what it encompassed. But basically what it is that the government of Japan is willing to give the Sri Lanka Ports Authority a loan, which is a 40-year loan with a 10-year grace period at an interest rate of 0.1%. And for us to build out ECT1, to complete ECT1, East Container Terminal 1, and also East Container Terminal 2. So all the details cannot be divulged because it's in discussion, and also a final agreement needs to be signed. And we hope this agreement will be signed in about 3 months. So what that will allow us to do is to build out ECT1 and ECT2 with a loan from JICA on very concessionary terms. The facility will be owned 100% by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, because we are borrowing, we are building. The agreement also calls for the setting up of a terminal operation company, which will manage this terminal. The tenure of the management period is undecided. It can be 10, 20, 30 years. But what it is that the Sri Lanka Ports Authority will own 51% of this terminal operation company,
Right.
which means that in effect we will be controlling the terminal operating company, because whether you have 51% or 52% or 53%, there is operating capacity. The balance 49%, the government of Japan and the government of India will decide who the investors would be.
Right.
That hasn't been decided yet. It could be it could be funders like pension funds or other investors who take a stake in exchange for return. So this terminal operating company will operate ECT, and it's going to be a deep draft terminal which can handle ships of up to 18 meters draft. And it's a dire requirement, because given the ships that are calling on the port of Colombo, they're increasingly becoming bigger and bigger. And we really do need this extra terminal, and we need to do it quickly, because if we are keen on the hub status, and hub status is what drives growth and makes everybody connect to that port, then we need to bring on capacity ahead of demand. If you don't do that, these shipping lines have other options, and they don't need to deal just with Colombo. There are other ports that will gladly take their business. So we need to move ahead quickly and bring this terminal into operation quickly, or we risk losing our hub status. So the stakes are very high. The opportunities are high, but the stakes are also high of not doing something. So it's a very critical moment in time, and defining moment, and we must make the correct decisions and make the correct decisions fast.
You said that Japan was funding it through JICA. Yes. What is India's real involvement in this thing?
India is important to us because of the 80% transshipment. I was discussing 80% of the traffic that goes through the port of Colombo is transshipment. The balance approximately, the balance 20% is import-export. Of the 80%, a significant portion, we size it at about 70%, is from India.
Right.
So when you build ports, what I have seen of other ports in the world is you do things in partnership, because you can't do ports in isolation, and it makes perfect sense to be in partnership with a country that's providing that kind of traffic to you.
Yes.
Because no port can survive on its own. We don't have shipping lines of the size that is required. So everything is a partnership. And we have grown to this stage through partnerships, through good partnerships. Our current terminal, SAGT, has a Maersk partnership in it.
And one thing, you said like we don't have shipping lines. Is there anywhere in the plan some time that we plan to have a ship or a fleet or something of our own?
I think that's real. I mean,
Not immediately.
It's not something the government should be in alone.
Yes.
You know, many other
that's a
shipping
huge
lines around the
yes.
world are private sector endeavors. It's a challenging thing. I'm not saying we are not up to it.
Yeah.
I think somebody here can do it, and the Port of Colombo will be more than happy to support,
to handle it.
to handle it and support such a venture.
Yes, because why I asked you was, I mean, I told you, know, as everything comes and goes in a ship,
Yeah.
and I don't think we have too many of those. We should, because that would give us advantage and a little more control, even in a smaller place. I mean,
Yes.
A smaller position.
Yeah, I would think of it differently. I would do things that we are good at doing,
Right.
and that is and take first the low-hanging fruit.
Yes, of course.
And right now, what we can do in this area is provide outstanding port service to all callers, and to provide a logistics service that is world class to all callers, and to do this quickly, seamlessly, efficiently, you know, and keep adding value where the customers are. So that's where I would focus and leverage all our available assets, which includes Hambantota, which includes Galle. I won't look at Hambantota as you know, a competitor. I would look at it. There's a strong element of cooperation,
Right.
as well as competition. So I see more the cooperation side there than the competition side, because there's a lot that they can do for Sri Lanka in terms of a port that's very close to the maritime routes. Bring Galle into play, bring Trincomalee into play, and make the whole thing play like an orchestra,
Yes.
and build Sri Lanka up to be relevant to businesses around the world.
For you to achieve this target in the short term,
Yeah.
what would you say that you actually need or you should have, if there is anything more that you need, facilities or whatever, in the short term, what do you think you would require?
We are going to need a lot of manpower,
Right.
and I think somebody other than the authority has to start thinking of this. The authority must think about it, and we have our Mahapala Institute.
Yes.
But the educational institutions throughout Sri Lanka must start thinking of this sector and addressing demand, because we are going to need people.
Yes.
There's a fear that we'll need less people. On the contrary, we are going to need more people.
Yes.
East Container Terminal will need at least additional 500 people, maybe more. ECT2 will need a similar number. So when we add WCT and WCT2, once again, maybe another 2,000 people there. So altogether, just on the terminals alone, we are looking at another 2,000 people and everybody that's required in the back end to support those terminals. So there's going to be jobs created. The jobs are going to be of higher quality, more skilled, because you can't do things the same old way. You have to automate. You have to,
move with the times.
Move with the times. And once the logistics piece comes in, and we are hoping to do that simultaneously in parallel,
right,
and very quickly, hopefully. And once we bring those in, those endeavors are also going to call for additional, really the numbers are in thousands.
Yes.
So it's a lot of manpower. And I fear that we are running out of manpower fast. I mean, because
I think so. This country is. I mean, they find it very difficult to recruit people now.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that the retirement age is still at the same old level.
Yeah.
This.
I keep telling my employees that the ones who really do work have to plan on working till about 65, because.
But are they allowed to work till 60?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. I know.
But we'll have to start looking at that.
Yes, because I think other countries like Australia, America, there is no retirement age. Italy, people are working till 90. For some reason, I don't know why, who put that age limit, but it is still there, unfortunately. Mr. Adhaka, finally, tell me, now this is a very nice, I would say, positive real nice picture that we see, because the opportunities all laid out, and the income generation, the job generation factors are all there. Take it another 20 years. Once we do this, looking at a more globalized picture, where do you think we could take these ports to? Right now, we will say, okay, all the ports are running, we are good. I mean, but still there will be room for improvements. What do you envisage as we could take this port to what point?
Our National Port Master Plan takes us out till about 2050.
Right.
And that's a long way out to project these days. But you need to have the plans. You need to do the engineering studies, do the environmental impact assessments, and have it all ready to build it out. But having said all of that, you can't, it's difficult to project too far out.
Yeah.
I think there's an urgent need to really focus and do today really well.
Right.
Because to a great extent, doing today really well is what's going to determine our future.
For tomorrow.
Yeah, otherwise we'll build castles in the air
Right.
and not do what has to be done today. But what goes without saying is that's tremendous opportunity for everybody. Trade is a way of life.
Yeah.
While there's little hiccups around the world about trade wars and all of this, it's come to a stage where we can't do without the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ratnayaka.
Thank you very much.
It was a very, very enlightening discussion, because you, I think, very aptly explained what we could see, because there are a lot of doubt about the ports and where it's going and what might happen, and people are naturally scared and then they go into panics.
Yeah.
So I think you have allayed all those fears. Thank you again. This brings us to the end of our discussion today in the Way Forward with Mr. Kavan Ratnayaka, who spoke on the ports of Sri Lanka. We will be back again with another very interesting personality who would help us with his experience and views of how we can take this country forward. Thank you.